We are hearing from the Manhattan district attorney behind the possible criminal charges for Donald Trump, although his lawyers have denied to NBC News that they've been told that charges are forthcoming. The former president was told that he could appear before a Manhattan grand jury if he wishes to testify, which frankly seems highly unlikely at this point. The probe is centering on the alleged hush money payment made to adult film star Stormy Daniels in 2016. Speaking yesterday to our Reverend Al Sharpton on Politics Nation, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg remained tight-lipped about the ongoing investigation, but he did give some insight into the team looking into Trump's potential wrongdoings.
Many observed last year the trial of the Trump Organization. And so what I would say is the same team is working with the same type of professionalism and rigor, the same type of team on our active investigation.
Joining me now for more is Barbara McQuade, former U.S. attorney in Michigan, professor at the University of Michigan School of Law, and an MSNBC legal analyst. Barb, my friend, thanks so much for joining us. You and I both know that sounds like standard prosecutor media language. But what does it tell you that it's the same team that did the Trump Organization trial that's spearheading this particular investigation into Donald Trump?
I think that is a significant fact, Katie, and I think one of the reasons Alvin Bragg probably agreed to this interview was not to disclose what they're talking about, but the process, and that people should be confident that this is a highly professional team that has successfully prosecuted the Trump Organization before. And so I think he's just trying to build public confidence for what's likely to come in the next week or so.
Trump is apparently meeting with his legal team this weekend to strategize next steps. If you were a Trump lawyer, and I know that there's been plenty of them, Barb, but if you were a Trump lawyer, what would you be telling him to do at this point?
God forbid. One, stop talking about it. Don't talk about it. Anything you say about this can be used against you. You know, for Donald Trump, so often the best defense is a good offense. Talk about it as a witch hunt. Talk about it as a hoax, as persecution, victimhood, etc. He's got plenty of fodder for those themes if he wants to talk about it. But for this one, it would be best to lie low. I think the lawyers, have been reported to have been invited in to talk to the prosecutors, and Donald Trump himself has been invited to come in and testify. I would not encourage him to testify. Donald Trump has shown that he has a very loose relationship with the truth, and so testifying under oath would be, I think, disastrous for him. But the lawyers themselves should go in to find out whatever it is they can about this case and to work to persuade prosecutors to stand down. Those kinds of efforts can be successful. And so if they've invited the Trump lawyers in to have those conversations, they should by all means take them up on it.
You know, Barb, speaking of lying low and not talking, Trump, of course, released a lengthy statement about this investigation, denying any wrongdoing and saying in part, quote, the following: I relied on counsel in order to resolve this extortion of me, which took place a long time ago. And additionally, the statute of limitations has long since ended, and in fact, radical left media 1.5 years ago did a countdown on the statute of limitations, which was allowed to expire. Definitely, Barb, we are not opining on the accuracy of that statement, but are either of those really available defenses to Donald Trump?
No. Statute of limitations, ordinarily is 5 years. We are more than 5 years out from 2016. But in Manhattan during the COVID pandemic, the courts told the statute of limitations. So it bought them extra time. In addition, if any part of a conspiracy spills into that 5-year period, then those activities can count, including concealing those efforts. And so I'm sure Alvin Bragg has done his calculation and knows how the statute is going to apply in this case. So that's a non-starter. Defensive counsel, advice of counsel works on some occasion when somebody is following a lawyer's advice to do something, but it does not negate your own wrongdoing in most instances. I doubt it would happen here because Donald Trump knew that he was concealing these business records. As Michael Cohen has said, the payments were done in small segments so that they could pass them off as legal expenses. He paid Michael Cohen on a monthly basis so that they could disguise it as legal fees. That is not something a lawyer would advise a client. If they did, that would be a crime, and that would be subject to crime fraud exceptions to these rules. So neither of these defenses is going to prevail.
You know, Barb, with this open door offer for Trump to testify before the grand jury, should we be on indictment watch as soon as this week?
I think we should, Katie. I think we've got all the signals that this case is nearing its end. Number one, we've got Michael Cohen coming in to testify finally after 19 or 20 meetings with the prosecutors. That, no doubt, has been their effort to try to corroborate everything he has said to them before they're willing to put him in. Because of his history as a convicted perjurer, they would want to be sure that they themselves have confidence that he's telling them the truth and that they can prove it to a jury. And so hearing other witnesses tell the same story or finding documents that support that claim would be important to that. Also, calling Trump to testify is typically the last step a prosecutor would make. You would want to make sure you have all the information you can have before you would put someone like that in the grand jury. I also think that it is unlikely they would go to the extraordinary step of inviting Donald Trump to testify before the grand jury if they were only going to decline to prosecute this case. So I think from those facts, we can conclude that, number one, an indictment is coming, and number two, it is coming very soon, whether the end of this week or the week to follow. I think we're going to see a presidential candidate under indictment.